Hello, dear viewer. Welcome to yet another episode of Late Night Sets with your host, the Purple Sharpie. I am here with a general good friend of mine, Phantasy Star Online 2 addict, just like myself, and someone who happens to be the lead tournament organizer of the Team French Bread Fighting Game Tournament series, Climax of Night. Shinobi, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very, very good today, Sharpie. How about you?
I'm doing great. And, I just want to thank you again. I know, obviously, firstly, I'm really, really excited that the Climax of Night series is starting back up again. But I'm also really thankful that you had time to go ahead and do this interview because you're someone inside the community who I think has always been a very good representative of not only indie games, but also anime games that don't typically get their shine inside the FGC. So thank you again.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Let's go ahead and get straight into the questions. Let's start off with, how did you actually start inside of the fighting game community?
Well, I started, it was a long time ago, but I started playing fighting games competitively around 2005, 2006, but I didn't go to tournaments or started to enter tournaments until 2007. I am originally here down in the South, Birmingham, Alabama, and I worked with Final Round for quite a few years as just a bracket runner, game lead sort of deal. But as the years progressed and Melty Blood started to become kind of like a more focused, bigger deal on having offline events, especially during those earlier years, I was working a lot with Final Round in order to have Melty Blood become a staple event during the years that it was at Final Round.
So I know that obviously it sounds like tournament organizing has always kind of been your gig. Now for, it sounds like almost 20 years, just about. Was there anything that kind of contributed heavily towards you starting the Climax of Night series?
Yeah, it was more or less having the question of what could we do about games that are, not of the big three pedigree is what they call it, the Street Fighters, the Tekkens, and the Mortal Kombats. To have an event that could possibly be sustainable on its own, especially with the emergence of anime games in general, Guilty Gear and Blaze Blue and Persona, those kind of events were starting to weaving their way into the general FGC offline scope when it comes to tournaments. Events like Anime Ascension, Otaku, even Tekken and Versus games have events of their own that only feature those specific games. And with all of the bigger FGC events becoming even bigger outside of EVO, like say Combo Breaker and CEO, they have 25, 30 plus main games. I believe that it's starting to become a time where there should be, or more people are starting to branch out into having events that are more hyper focused onto one community. And I think that's a beautiful thing because the FGC as a whole has gotten like so much bigger, and it's so much more than the Street Fighter and Tekkens that most people have come accustomed to. There are people playing a lot of games.
It's really interesting, obviously, because a lot of people choose to start their own locals, but they typically choose to start with weeklies or monthlies or regionals. They don't typically have people traveling from out of state. And specifically in Climax of Night's case, this is one of the events where people actually travel internationally to come to the event. So what I'd really love to hear more about is how you ended up building an event where you're getting not only out of region contestants, but also international contestants, a number of which is basically on par with events like Combo Breaker, CEO, or even EVO. How did you build that, starting with the venue?
Going from a local or a regional level kind of event for games that are like as niche as Melty Blood or Under Night wasn't really going to cut it. I needed it to be presented as a big deal, but only for those games. It was also important for me to have a space that was affordable and not small enough to where if I had maybe about 100, 200 people, that was perfectly fine. It was pretty much me getting on the phone, driving out 3 hours because I am from Birmingham. I'm not located in Atlanta. So it was me having to, do the drives back and forth and figure out what would be not only the most affordable, but also the most pretty cozy. Because we didn't have that many resources. Like, I knew people, but there wasn't that many resources to go around, especially for a game like Under Night in 2018, which did end up doing very well on our very first year out. But there was no discrepancy to me between a local, a regional, or a major. It was just we needed to run something, and we needed as many people as that could go out as possible.
A lot of organizers are not in any way, shape, or form shy in the fact that, hey, by the way, like, it's really important that we get a certain reg number for this event. And these are events that have multiple games from several different publishers and several different developers. You're actually focusing on just one developer for your game. What did you find when it came to the financial situation of running an offline tournament exclusively for Team French Bread games?
It's a lot of money, just in general, because running events is a lot, and things go wrong. And I think where a lot of people's thought process when it comes to people running events is that we do have to pay if something goes wrong, or we do have to pay extra if we need something that the venue provides. Everything is pretty much nickel and dimed throughout the entire tournament building process, I guess. These events are growing, and with growing tides comes growing expense, especially for tournaments like us, where we're not guaranteed numbers of Street Fighter or Tekken level. We have to really depend on other ways to try and break even on these. And one of the most important things is with merchandise. Now, for the first year, we only had one shirt, and it was just the logo of Climax, and everyone wears it like a badge of honor, saying like, I was there on the first one. But at that time, those sales were very, very serious, and it's only gotten more. We've only pushed merch more and more and more year after year after year, because the entry fees and such, we don't want to go too high, especially if you're not playing Street Fighter or Tekken. This is Under Night. So I'm definitely not trying to break bank with the college students or the younger players that we all have money problems, but it definitely hits the college students, the early 20s, a whole lot more, because I've had to go through that myself. I always want to try to make balance of what's affordable and what is able to be and what is approachable for us in terms of finance when it comes to looking up for event.
I'm really happy that you're transparent, especially when it comes to the financials of what it takes to build an event. But I would like to talk to you more about specifically quarantine and the COVID pandemic's effect on Climax of Night. It's no secret that many events were unable to sustain through quarantine, and even less were able to come back after the pandemic, the numbers of which we're still in the process of finding out today about how that affected not only the continental United States, but the international fighting game at large. Climax of Night was unfortunately impacted. You did not have an event in 2020 due to the pandemic starting. You did come back in 2021, and at Climax of the Night 2022, you actually announced that that was going to be the very last Climax of Night. Talk to us a little bit more as the head organizer about what went into that decision and why you ultimately decided to end the series there.
So in 2020, obviously the pandemic was a huge deciding factor on on how we were going to move in 2020 in general. The good thing about 2019's Climax was that we broke even, and we didn't have that much invested in 2020 at the time that the pandemic was a thing. So when we looked at everything, we just decided to not run it just to be safe. It was good. It was a blessing because we usually run the event in October, November, really late into the year. When the pandemic was announced in February, March, when COVID was a thing, like back in December that previous year. So we had a lot of time to work with. But afterwards, 2021 and 2022, we were definitely being safe with COVID still being around. The decision that I had in 2022 was twofold. Number one, it was due to charges. It was due to finances. Trying to run an event during COVID when people are still trying to be protected. The entries were still good, but we still felt like they took a little hit. Especially with people who were pulling out last minute. And then in 2022, we also had a good come out rate, a good attendance for that one as well. But at the same time, we still weren't receiving much from the merch sales or entries in general. The other reason why I decided that was because I have been in this community for almost 2 decades. I always felt like Climax was never built to last. It was here for a good time, not for a long time sort of deal, because I also acknowledge the games that I'm hosting and the developer that's behind them and like all the other factors that would be going against games like this. But it was good on the community to be able to show not only themselves but the FGC as a whole that these guys can go wherever they go. Climax of Night is only like an exclamation point on the great success that community had, even with everything, what seemed like everything pulling against them. I just wanted to instill to the players, the community, and also to the TOs that these games are absolutely deserving of being on a stage with Street Fighter and Tekken and any other game that you might hold in high regard. I feel like Climax did its job there, and from 2022, I honestly could have just stopped there. But I understand a new game comes out, everybody's reinvigorated, everybody's excited. Uni 2 has been a blast to play and to watch so far, so I had to hit them with another.
Let's go ahead and talk about Climax's ultimate revival. But before we do that, we have a few advertisements from some of our sponsors. Please stay tuned. Even more late night sets with the purple Sharpie coming right back. Welcome back. You are watching Late Night Sets with your host, the Purple Sharpie, and I'm interviewing Shinobi, event organizer and lead tournament organizer for Climax of Night, a Team French Bread exclusive major tournament. I actually wanted to rewind a little bit from the very last topic we were talking about, which was how Under Night 2 kind of reinvigorated the Team French Bread scene. You actually were responsible for running Melty Blood at EVO as a main game for both 2022 and 2023. And Melty Blood was actually the very first independent fighting game to ever be featured at EVO as a main game back in 2010. How did it feel now 12 years later, almost 13 years later, to be running that title at EVO as a main game again? And what was that experience like for you?
Honestly, we played that Melty version in 2010, which was Actress Again. We played it like it was going to be the very last version that we will ever see for Melty Blood as a whole. We were going to go on to just be like just like a legacy game, like an old Capcom game like Vampire Savior and CVS2, games like that. And also for the Guilty Gears, like Guilty Gear Ascent Core, also has a very, very huge dedicated following. Even after it's been released 15 years, I think the first iteration of that was like 15 years ago. Mm-hmm. So I was completely fine with just being one of those games because I still like Actress Again Current Code to this day. When they came out with Type Lumina in 2021, and then it got announced for EVO in 2022, that was a big deal. That was a huge deal for somebody like me who was definitely around during the good old days where it would just be like maybe a dozen people in a corner or in a dark corner of a tournament just playing the game and having fun with it. So for it to be able to be on a stage, the biggest stage for fighting games, which is EVO, 12 years after we just thought that was going to be the first and last time we ever do it, was definitely heartwarming to me. And to be able to be a huge part in getting that tournament ran together and ran as smoothly as it did was definitely a highlight for me in the FGC. Definitely. I would say me going to my first EVO, which was 2010, and then going to EVO 2022, not as like a bracket runner who's just working for pennies in a shirt, to being like a game lead to one of the best fighting games that I've played at that time was definitely a highlight mark for me.
So I now want to go on to Under Night 2, which was announced during an interview with Team French Bread at EVO 2023. I actually happened to be watching the developer interviews, and I was there and listening to the developers say, hey, we love what the community's doing. Thank you so much for supporting us. Thank you for like 13 years of supporting us. And we never thought the game would get this big. Also, Under Night 2 is coming out. And like you said, previous to the commercial break, you were kind of done with the Climax series for a multitude of reasons. But ultimately, you saw the interest come back from Under Night 2 being announced, and you had to go one more again. Talk to us about what it's taking this specific year, now that there's a plethora of Team French Bread games. You're not only running 2 different versions of Melty and several different versions of Under Night, you're also running Under Night 2 for the very first time in 2024. And I do want to remind our viewers that you can actually support Climax of Night by purchasing some of their merch at climax-of-night.creator-spring.com. And I do recommend, just personally from my appearance here, supporting grassroots events. But I'll allow you to answer the question now, Shinobi.
So with the release of Under Night 2, I fell on my knees in the middle of the entire conference space, because I was like, oh no, not again. Because it's like, as soon as I think I'm out, they pull me back in. But the good thing about Under Night 2 was that the previous version, Uni Clear, was already like consistent with entry numbers. people were still playing that game. It wasn't like it fell off or anything like that. But when Uni 2 came out, literally everyone got back into it. And when we did finally get our hands on it with the network test in November of 2023, everybody just got hook, line, sinker back into it, including myself. So being able to be in that conference center when they did announce Uni 2 and to be around all these players and all these community members that were so excited to see that game and how it would flesh out to be. And then the question that I kept getting the whole weekend since that got announced is, will you run another Climax? And it's like, oh yeah, I'm working on it, I'm thinking about it, but
working on it, TM.
Yeah. Yeah, but deep in my mind, I was like, I gotta at least do another one, because this is the most the game has changed in almost 5 years. So with Climax of Night being lauded as the under night major, it's a French bread centric community tournament. Like, not gonna front there, but as it being considered in the community as the uni major, I gotta step up and see what these folks can do. I gotta see what this game is truly capable of, outside of the combo breakers and the evos and the CEOs. And I feel that Climax of Night was the best opportunity to have the uni community be shown as like they are the shit, pretty much.
So I do want to go ahead and talk about the aesthetic of Climax of Night. It's very, very particular. It really tugs at the heartstrings. As a millennial who grew up watching Toonami, I'm getting advanced Adult Swim-esque vibes when I watch some of the trailers and bumpers, and a lot of the extracurricular items and events that you have at Climax kind of grab that same atmosphere. You have DJ sets where you have custom-made DJ tracks while people are playing Under Night and Melty Blood. You have little bumpers to promote the event that are very similar to the Toonami and Adult Swim bumpers. Talk to us more about your decision to kind of pay homage to the nostalgic feelings of Adult Swim.
So when I first started running Climax, it was just based off of survivability. I didn't care for a theme or anything that would set us apart outside of the fact that Under Night is our biggest game. We kind of leaned more into what Under Night was doing, which was just the English everywhere, the nonsensical sentences and stuff like that. But I'm a beathead. I'm also a DJ. I'm someone who loves to listen to music. There was a bump from Adult Swim, is one of my favorites. It's called Owls Only, and the song behind it is a Jay Dilla track, and it's called Welcome to the Show. And I heard Welcome to the Show one morning, just come over, like, while I'm listening to music, and I was like, wait, like I remember hearing this before. So yeah, when I looked up the bump, I was like, it was just a light bulb just like went off into my head, because I was around during that time, and I love Toonami and I love Adult Swim. So I'm just thinking to myself, like, why didn't I really think of this before? So after that happened, my brain just went into overdrive, and I have like little to no editor knowledge or none of that. I just opened up GIMP and just went to town for like a month. I've attempted to make so many bumps that will probably never ever see the light of day. But with that, imagery and that passion to be able to enjoy those certain years of my life, and to be able to experience that with other players and other community members that are my age and completely respect the anime-esque presentation, urbanized hip-hop, they all kind of blend off and make Adult Swim. I think with that, and it being Under Night, or the general French bread aesthetic being like, oh, well, these stages are always at night, and these characters are very anime presenting and anime looking. with those two together, it really made an unmatchable combo. Like it's literally the perfect blend of what I want to represent and what I want to show people what we represent, which is mostly chill, laid back. We want to fight, but we always want to keep things minimalistic and just keep things on the objective of keeping the community first.
I completely understand. We actually have quite a few photographs from both the official Climax of Night Twitter account and your personal Twitter account of several different attendants every single year at the end of Climax, making sure that the venue is like literally spotless, which I think you personally pride yourself in tremendously. So I just want to say thank you again for creating such a beautiful event that's able to really tug at the heartstrings of the fighting game community. And for this final question, I want to give you an opportunity to shout out anybody or any entity that was responsible for you being here today that you would personally like to thank.
Oh, thank God. I thought you would never ask.
Okay. We do have a certain amount of time for this. You are aware, correct?
Yeah. I know.
Okay.
I know.
Okay.
Let me just. God, let me get my reading glasses.
Oh my goodness.
What? All right. We good?
Yeah.
We good?
Yeah. Go whenever you're ready.
Okay. Yes, I would. I would like to thank God. In case my grandma watches this, I would also like to thank my mother, who literally gave birth to me. I want to thank the community for allowing me to take their money for a good cause, which is keeping dead games alive.
It's really interesting because it seems like you're struggling to read the names off this pre-prepared list.
This is very small. Very small. Okay. I write small. Okay. I also want to thank Team Data for all the production and power things that I have absolutely no idea about. I want to thank Obama. Not the president, but the other Obama.
Majin Obama?
Yeah, him. Let's see. I want to thank I do want to thank Mr. Jacking Off. He was a very, very pivotal player for making sure everybody changes their name on Smash for some reason. I want to thank Dikendry 2 for being a real. Okay,
I am now absolutely positive that there's nothing written on there at all.
There are things written.
Okay. Well, Shinobi,
I'm almost done.
Okay, I'm sorry for interrupting you.
Thank you. I would like to thank Chris Jericho for personally showing me how to do an armbar. And I would like to thank X for banning my account.
Okay, that's all the time that we have today. Shinobi, thank you again for being on the show. Greatly appreciated. And honestly, once again, Ben, thank you so much for doing this.
I'm really not done.
Yeah, you are. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Late Night Sets with your host, the Purple Sharpie. As always, if you'd love to support this video series, please please make sure to follow my podcast, FGC Cast, on literally all platforms and leave us a 5-star rating on Apple and Spotify. It really helps. Well, gamers, we'll see you offline.
Still have to thank.
No, you're done. No, you're done. You're done. You're done because I said you're done.
Okay.